When we talk about the idea of a perfect partner, we often imagine someone who says the right things, does the right things, and somehow always knows how to make us feel secure and desired at the same time. But beneath all of those visible behaviors lies something far more fundamental, something less glamorous, yet infinitely more powerful: emotional maturity and self-awareness. This is the invisible architecture of a relationship. Without it, even the most passionate connection eventually collapses under the weight of misunderstanding, projection, and unmet expectations. If you listen to thinkers like philosophers, you begin to see that relationships are not just about love. They are about how we manage ourselves in the presence of another. Emotional maturity is not about being calm all the time or never feeling jealousy, anger, or insecurity. It is about recognizing those emotions without being ruled by them. It is the ability to pause between feeling and reacting, to create space where choice becomes possible. Because the truth is, most relationship conflicts are not really about what is happening in the present moment. They are echoes of something older. Old fears, old wounds, old narratives we carry about ourselves and others. A partner who lacks self-awareness will unconsciously project these stories onto the relationship. They will assume betrayal where there is none, rejection where there is simply difference, distance where there may only be individuality. And in doing so, they don't just misunderstand their partner, they distort reality itself. A self-aware partner, on the other hand, is curious about their own inner world. Instead of saying, "You made me feel this way," they ask, "Why did this affect me so strongly?" That shift may seem subtle, but it changes everything. It transforms conflict from a battlefield into a space of inquiry. It replaces blame with responsibility. And responsibility in this context is not about guilt. It is about power, because when you understand your emotional patterns, you gain the ability to change them. Emotional maturity also shows up in how we handle discomfort. In many relationships, people try to eliminate tension as quickly as possible. They avoid difficult conversations, suppress inconvenient truths, or smooth things over to maintain a sense of harmony. But real intimacy does not grow in the absence of tension. It grows in the ability to navigate it. A mature partner does not run from discomfort. They engage with it thoughtfully. They understand that growth often feels unsettling, that honesty can create temporary instability in service of long-term trust. There is also a quiet strength in emotional regulation, not suppression, not denial, but regulation. The ability to stay grounded even when emotions are intense. This is what allows someone to listen without becoming defensive, to speak without becoming aggressive, to remain present instead of shutting down. It is what turns arguments into conversations and differences into opportunities for deeper understanding. And perhaps most importantly, self-awareness brings humility into the relationship. It allows a person to say, "I was wrong," without collapsing into shame. It allows them to acknowledge impact without becoming paralyzed by guilt. This is rare and it is transformative, because when one person takes responsibility, it often invites the other to do the same. It creates a culture within the relationship where growth is not a threat but a shared value. We often think that the perfect partner is someone who completes us, someone who fills in the gaps. But a more accurate and more demanding truth is this: the perfect partner is someone who is committed to knowing themselves. Because without that, love becomes a negotiation of unconscious needs. With it, love becomes a conscious choice. So when you evaluate a partner or even yourself, the question is not, are they perfect? The question is, are they aware? Do they reflect or do they react? Do they take ownership or do they assign blame? Do they grow or do they repeat? Because in the end, the quality of your relationship is not determined by how intensely you feel, but by how consciously you relate. And the most powerful thing you can bring into any partnership is not perfection, but awareness. If emotional maturity is the internal foundation of a strong partner, then communication is the bridge that connects two inner worlds. It is where everything we feel, fear, hope, and imagine attempts to take shape in language. And yet, this is precisely where so many relationships begin to fracture. Not because people don't care, but because they don't know how to translate their inner experience into something the other person can truly hear. When we speak about communication, we often reduce it to techniques. Say this, don't say that, use I statements, avoid blame. These tools are useful, but they are not the essence. The deeper question is, Are you speaking to express, or are you speaking to protect yourself? Because many of us don't communicate to reveal who we are. We communicate to manage how we are perceived. We edit, we filter, we withhold. And in doing so, we create a version of ourselves that is easier to accept but harder to truly know. This is where honesty becomes both powerful and complicated. Honesty is often misunderstood as simply telling the truth, but in relationships, truth is layered. There is what happened, there is how you interpreted it, and there is what you felt about it. A partner who communicates effectively understands the difference. They don't present their feelings as absolute facts, nor do they dismiss them as irrelevant. Instead, they take ownership of their experience. They say, in essence, this is my reality and I want you to understand it, rather than this is the reality and you must accept it. If you listen to voices like philosopher, you begin to notice that good communication is less about speaking perfectly and more about listening courageously. Because to truly listen is to risk being changed by what you hear. It requires you to set aside your immediate need to defend, to correct, or to win. And that is not easy. Most of us listen with the intention of replying, not understanding. We are already preparing our counter-argument while the other person is still speaking. A mature partner does something different. They listen to understand the meaning beneath the words. They pay attention not only to what is being said, but to what is being implied, what is being avoided, what is being felt but not yet articulated. This kind of listening creates safety, and safety is what allows honesty to emerge. Not forced, not demanded, but offered. Because honesty cannot exist in an environment of fear. If someone believes that telling the truth will lead to rejection, humiliation, or constant conflict, they will eventually choose silence or distortion. And then the relationship begins to operate on partial truths, on assumptions, on guesswork. Two people are no longer relating to each other. They are relating to their interpretations of each other. There is also a paradox here. We often say we want honesty, but what we really want is reassurance. We want the truth as long as it doesn't challenge us too deeply. A perfect partner is not someone who avoids difficult truths to keep the peace. It is someone who knows how to deliver truth with care and how to receive truth without collapsing. This balance between honesty and compassion is what sustains long-term intimacy. And then there is the issue of silence. Not all silence is the same. Sometimes silence is peaceful, a shared space where no words are needed. But sometimes silence is avoidance. It is what happens when conversations feel too heavy, too risky, or too exhausting to engage in. Over time, unspoken words accumulate. They don't disappear, they settle beneath the surface, shaping behavior in subtle but powerful ways. Distance grows, not because of what was said, but because of what was never allowed to be said. Effective communication, then, is not about constant talking. It is about meaningful exchange. It is about knowing when to speak, when to listen, and when to pause. It is about creating a rhythm where both people feel seen and heard, not occasionally, but consistently. And consistency matters. One honest conversation cannot compensate for months of avoidance. One moment of vulnerability cannot replace a pattern of emotional unavailability. A partner who communicates well does not do so only in moments of crisis. They make it a habit. They check in. They clarify. They revisit. They understand that communication is not a one-time event. It is an ongoing process. Ultimately, communication is not just a skill. It is a reflection of intention. It reveals how willing you are to be known and how willing you are to know the other. It asks you to move beyond assumption into curiosity, beyond defensiveness into openness. Because at the heart of every strong relationship is a simple but demanding practice. Two people choosing again and again to tell the truth and to listen to it. And the question you have to ask yourself is not just, am I being heard? But, am I creating a space where truth can exist? Because in the end, love does not fail from lack of feeling. It fails from lack of honest conversation. If communication is the bridge between two people, then trust is the ground beneath their feet. Without it, no matter how beautifully you speak or how deeply you feel, the relationship remains unstable, always at risk of collapsing under pressure. Trust, loyalty, and consistency are often spoken about as ideals, but in reality, they are practices. They are built slowly, through repetition, through reliability, through the quiet accumulation of kept promises. And this is where many people misunderstand trust. They think of it as something that is given at the beginning and broken in a single moment. But more often, trust is not shattered dramatically. It erodes gradually. It weakens in the small inconsistencies, in the words that don't match actions, in the subtle sense that what you see is not always what you get. A partner who is inconsistent creates confusion, and confusion is one of the fastest ways to destabilize emotional security. Consistency, then, is not boring. It is deeply reassuring. It is what allows someone to relax into the relationship instead of constantly scanning for signs of change or threat. When a partner is consistent, you begin to understand their patterns, their values, their responses. You don't have to guess who they will be tomorrow because they have shown you repeatedly who they are today. This does not mean rigidity. It does not mean a person cannot evolve or adapt. It means that their core remains dependable. Their words carry weight because they are backed by action. Their presence is not conditional on mood or convenience. And in a world that is often unpredictable, this kind of reliability becomes a form of emotional safety. If you listen to perspectives like those of philosophers, you begin to see that trust is not only about fidelity or honesty in the obvious sense, it is also about emotional trust. Can I trust you with my vulnerability? Can I trust that you will not use my fears against me? Can I trust that when I reveal something fragile, you will handle it with care rather than judgment? Loyalty, in this context, becomes more than just the absence of betrayal. It becomes an active stance. It is about how you represent your partner when they are not present. It is about whether you protect the integrity of the relationship even in small everyday moments. Loyalty is not only tested in crises, it is revealed in habits. And yet, loyalty is often misunderstood as blind commitment, as staying no matter what, as tolerating behavior that undermines your own well-being. But true loyalty does not ask you to abandon yourself. In fact, it requires a strong sense of self, because to be loyal is not to disappear into the relationship. It is to show up fully, with integrity, and to expect the same in return. There is also an important tension here between trust and control. When trust is weak, people try to compensate with control. They ask more questions, set more rules, monitor more closely. But control does not create trust. It replaces it. And over time, it suffocates the very connection it is trying to protect. A mature partner understands that trust involves risk. You cannot demand certainty in a space that is inherently uncertain. So instead of trying to eliminate risk, they focus on strengthening reliability. They do what they say they will do. They acknowledge when they cannot. They repair when they fall short. Because trust is not about never making mistakes. It is about how you respond when you do. Repair is a crucial, often overlooked part of trust. Every relationship will experience moments of disappointment, moments where expectations are not met. What matters is not the absence of these moments, but the willingness to address them. A partner who can say, "I see how this affected you, and I want to make it right," contributes more to trust than someone who avoids conflict altogether. And over time, these repairs accumulate. They create a sense that even when things go wrong, the relationship itself remains intact, that it can bend without breaking, that it can hold both imperfection and commitment at the same time. Ultimately, trust, loyalty, and consistency are not dramatic. They are quiet. They are built in the ordinary moments. The messages returned, the promises kept, the tone used in a difficult conversation, the choice to stay present when it would be easier to withdraw. They are the rhythm of reliability that turns connection into something sustainable. Because in the end, love is not proven in intensity. It is proven in repetition. It is proven in the daily decision to show up in a way that can be counted on. And the question you have to ask yourself is simple but demanding. Can someone rest in your presence without doubt? Because the strongest relationships are not the ones that never face uncertainty, but the ones where, even in uncertainty, trust remains steady. And then we arrive at something that often sounds simple, almost obvious, yet is profoundly complex when lived. Support, respect, and shared growth. These are the qualities people frequently claim to value, but far fewer truly understand in practice. Because to support someone is not merely to stand beside them, it is to stand beside them without trying to control who they become. And that distinction changes everything. In many relationships, support is conditional. It is offered as long as the other person's choices align with our expectations, our comfort, our vision of how life should unfold. But the moment their path diverges, when they take a risk, change direction, or grow in unexpected ways, support can quietly turn into resistance. What once sounded like encouragement becomes subtle discouragement, framed as concern. A mature partner recognizes this tension. They understand that to truly support someone is to make space for their evolution, even when it challenges your own sense of stability. Because growth is not always convenient. It disrupts routines, redefines roles, and sometimes forces both people to renegotiate the relationship itself. If you listen closely to perspectives like those of philosophers, you begin to see that one of the central paradoxes of love is this. We seek both security and expansion from the same person. We want someone who makes us feel safe, but also someone who allows us to explore, to become, to transform. And balancing these two needs, stability and growth, is one of the most demanding tasks in any partnership. Respect plays a crucial role here. Not the superficial kind, not politeness or basic courtesy, but a deeper respect for the other person's autonomy. The recognition that they are not an extension of you, not a reflection of your identity, but a separate individual with their own desires, fears, and ambitions. And that separation is not a threat. It is the very condition that makes genuine connection possible. Because without respect, support becomes patronizing. It turns into guidance that was never asked for, into advice that subtly communicates, "I know better than you." Over time, this erodes confidence. It creates a dynamic where one person feels diminished, even if the intention was to help. A respectful partner does something different. They trust the other person's capacity to make decisions, even imperfect ones. They offer perspective without imposing it. They create an environment where individuality is not only accepted, but valued. And in doing so, they allow the relationship to breathe. There is also a generosity in true support. It shows up in moments of success, where envy could easily emerge. It shows up in moments of struggle, where patience is required. It is easy to support someone when their journey is smooth, when their growth aligns neatly with your own timeline. It is much harder when their progress feels uneven or when it forces you to confront your own insecurities. And this is where shared growth becomes essential. A strong relationship is not one where only one person evolves while the other remains static, nor is it one where both people grow in identical ways. It is a dynamic process where each person is committed to their own development while remaining engaged in the development of the relationship. This means asking difficult questions. Who are we becoming together? Are we creating a space that encourages curiosity or one that reinforces stagnation? Are we challenging each other in ways that inspire growth or in ways that create distance? Growth, in this sense, is not just about achievements or external progress. It is also about emotional and relational development, learning how to handle conflict more effectively, learning how to communicate with greater clarity, learning how to support without suffocating, and how to receive support without losing independence. And importantly, shared growth requires flexibility. The relationship you have today will not be the same relationship you have in 5 years. If it is, something has likely stopped evolving. A perfect partner understands that love is not static. It is something that must be continually redefined, renegotiated, and rediscovered. There will be moments when one person grows faster than the other, when one is ready for change while the other hesitates. These moments are not signs of failure. They are invitations. Invitations to reconnect, to realign, to decide consciously whether you are still moving in a direction that honors both individuals. Ultimately, support, respect, and shared growth ask you to move beyond the idea of love as possession. They invite you into a different kind of relationship, one based not on holding on, but on allowing the other person to expand, to change, to surprise you, and trusting that the connection is strong enough to evolve alongside that change. Because in the end, the goal is not to find someone who fits perfectly into your life as it is. It is to find someone who is willing to grow with you as life unfolds, And the real question is not, can you stay the same for me, but can we become more together? Because the most powerful relationships are not the ones that resist change, but the ones that are strengthened by it.